Winterland Park glowed like a small, sparkling city at the edge of town. Strings of warm lights wrapped around every lamppost, the scent of cinnamon drifting through the cold December air, and the sound of cheerful carols rolling across the crowd like a soft blanket. For Malik Johnson, a hardworking single black father, this wasn't just another holiday outing. This was a promise he made to himself years ago. Christmas would always feel magical for his daughter, no matter how hard life got. He held Ava's tiny gloved hand as they stepped through the entrance gate. Her eyes widened, shining with that innocent, pure bright excitement only children seem to keep. Malik loved that look, warm, hopeful, almost glowing. It reminded him why he pushed through double shifts, cold mornings, and bills that always came too fast. "Daddy, look, it's snowing," Ava squealed as artificial snowflakes drifted down from hidden machines. She twirled under them, her laughter light and sparkling, the kind of sound that eased every heavy part of Malik's heart. He smiled, pulling his worn jacket tighter around him. "Guess the North Pole sent us a little preview," he teased. They walked past food carts steaming with hot cocoa and buttery kettle corn, past couples taking photos under archways of mistletoe, past kids tugging their parents toward the rides. Everything felt alive, festive, comfortingly chaotic, like the whole park had been wrapped in holiday joy. Truth was, the tickets had cost Malik almost a full day's pay. He felt the pinch more than he admitted. But watching Ava bounce beside him, her face glowing in the amber lights, he knew without question it was worth it. Moments like this, simple, heartfelt, beautifully ordinary, were the kind he hoped she'd remember when she was older. They reached the central plaza where a towering Christmas tree soared above the crowd, glittering with ornaments and ribbons that shimmered like tiny stars. Ava gasped. "Daddy, it's the biggest tree I've ever seen." Malik lifted her into his arms so she could see better. "Well, sweetheart, tonight's all about big things. Big lights, big laughs, big memories." He didn't know yet that this night, this ordinary-seeming, joy-filled night, would change everything. That a single unexpected moment was waiting just steps ahead. A moment that would bring two families together in ways he could never imagine. The crowd thickened as Malik and Ava moved toward the carousel, the warm glow of the bulbs reflecting in Ava's curious eyes. She tugged at his sleeve, ready to run toward the painted horses, when something small and trembling slammed into Malik's leg. He stopped instantly. A little girl, maybe 6, maybe younger, clung to his jeans with both hands. Her dark curls were wild, her cheeks streaked with frantic tears, and her breath came in short, panicked bursts. She wore a white winter coat that looked expensive, but her fear made her seem fragile, almost breakable. Hey, it's okay," Malik said softly, kneeling down. He kept his voice warm, gentle, the same tone he used with Ava whenever she had nightmares. "You're safe. What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl tried to speak, but her words tangled inside her sobs. Ava stepped closer, eyes full of concern. "It's okay," she whispered kindly. "My daddy's nice. He can help you." That simple, innocent reassurance seemed to calm the girl enough to get out a single shaky word. "Emily." Malik offered a reassuring smile. "Hi, Emily. I'm Malik, and this is Ava. Did you get separated from your mom?" Emily nodded hard, then buried her face in the sleeve of Malik's jacket, clinging to him as if he were the only solid thing in the world. Malik felt a painful tug in his chest. He knew that fear, the raw, overwhelming panic of a child who feels alone. He scanned the crowd. No adult nearby looked worried or searching, just streams of people moving, laughing, unaware of the small earthquake happening in this little girl's heart. "All right," he said gently, lifting Emily into his arms with practiced ease. "We're going to help you find your mom, okay? You're not alone." Ava nodded, slipping her hand into Emily's. And just like that, the three of them stepped into a moment none of them knew would change their lives. While Malik carried Emily toward the main path, across the park, Charlotte Wallace was living every parent's nightmare. The successful, polished CEO who could negotiate million-dollar deals without blinking was now stumbling through Winterland Park with shaking hands and wild, terrified eyes. Her perfect curls had fallen out of their pins. Her designer coat hung crooked on her shoulders, and her breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. "Emily, Emily," she shouted, pushing past families, ignoring the annoyed looks. The more she searched, the more the festive music felt like a cruel joke. Bright, cheerful, completely out of sync with the storm raging inside her. 30 seconds, that was all it took. 30 seconds to answer a call about a last-minute change for tomorrow's charity event, and her daughter vanished into the crowd. Her heart pounded painfully, each beat heavy with guilt. How many times had she missed bedtime stories? How often had she rushed through weekends because work couldn't wait? Now the one person she loved most in the world was missing, and Charlotte felt the crushing weight of every mistake bearing down on her shoulders. Her security team spread out across the park, scanning every corner. But each update that crackled through their earpieces felt like a dagger. No sign of her yet. Still checking. Nothing. Charlotte's knees nearly buckled. She grabbed a railing to steady herself, fighting the rising wave of panic. Please, please let her be okay. Just when she thought her legs couldn't carry her anymore, her security lead spoke urgently into her ear. Ma'am, we may have found a child who matches Emily's description, near the carousel. Charlotte didn't wait. She ran. Through crowds, past lights and falling snow, heart pounding with desperate hope. She didn't know that the moment she reached the carousel would change everything for her and for the stranger holding her daughter. The carousel shimmered beneath thousands of warm white bulbs, its painted horses rising and falling in a gentle rhythm that made the whole scene feel storybook perfect. Malik found an open spot near the candy cane archway and gently set Emily down, keeping a steady hand on her shoulder so she wouldn't feel lost again. Ava, ever the little caretaker, pointed at the horses with bright enthusiasm. See the white one with the roses? That one looks like you, Emily. Emily gave a tiny trembling smile, her first since she'd clung to Malik's leg. Malik lifted her onto his shoulder so she could see above the crowd, hoping the new perspective might calm that lingering fear in her chest. And then, a voice ripped through the air like a siren. Emily! Before Malik could turn, Charlotte burst through the crowd, her face drained, frantic, and burning with fear. In a split second, fueled by pure maternal terror, she lunged forward and yanked Emily off Malik's shoulders with so much force the little girl gasped. Don't touch her! Don't you ever touch my daughter! Charlotte shouted, her voice shaking. A hush fell. Holiday music kept playing, painfully out of place. Malik raised both hands, palms open, his instincts calm despite the humiliation stinging his skin. Ma'am, I was just... But Charlotte couldn't hear anything. Her fear was too loud. To her, all she saw was a strange man holding her child above a crowd. Tears gathered in Emily's eyes. Ava stepped back, gripping Malik's jacket with wide, frightened eyes. People around them slowed. Phones appeared. Whispered judgments floated like cold air. Emily finally cried out, voice cracking. Mommy, stop! He helped me! He helped me! Charlotte froze. Her breath hitched. Her eyes blinked rapidly as her brain finally registered the truth. And in that suspended, aching moment, between confusion, shame, relief, and heartbreak, Charlotte Wallace realized she had just attacked the very man who saved her little girl. The world around them seemed to stop. Even the carousel's cheerful music felt distant, like it belonged to some other place. Charlotte stood frozen, still gripping Emily, her chest rising and falling with panicked breaths. Her eyes, wide, shaken, raw with fear, shifted from her daughter to Malik, who remained perfectly still, hands raised, trying to shield Ava from the gathering attention. Emily clung to her mother but cried harder. Mommy, he helped me. He was nice. He found me. The words hit Charlotte like a wave. Her gaze flickered to Ava, standing close to Malik, her tiny hand wrapped around his jacket, her face pale but brave. She wasn't afraid of Malik. She was afraid of Charlotte. That realization burned. Malik lowered his hand slowly, respectfully, his voice steady in a way that made the tension dissolve, inch by inch. Ma'am, your daughter was scared. We were just trying to help her feel safe until you found her. His tone wasn't defensive, it was gentle, understanding, human. Charlotte's throat tightened. Shame flushed through her, hot, overwhelming, impossible to swallow. She had accused an innocent man. Worse, she had done it in front of his child. She tried, but her voice cracked. I was terrified. I get it, Malik said quietly. Any parent would be. No bitterness, no anger, just empathy. Emily reached for Ava with her free hand, the two girls bridging the gap the adults couldn't yet cross. Ava squeezed her fingers back softly. People began drifting away, sensing the truth. Phones lowered. The tension broke like thin ice under warm sunlight, but Charlotte couldn't bring herself to stay a second longer. Not like this. Not in front of the man she had just wounded with her fear. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely audible. Then she hurried off with Emily in her arms, leaving Malik standing beneath the glowing lights, sad, calm, and still holding Ava close. Neither of them knew this moment wasn't an ending. It was the beginning of everything. Charlotte couldn't shake the image of Malik's face, steady, calm, painfully dignified, after she'd accused him. Even back in the VIP lounge, surrounded by soft lighting and polished wood decor, the shame clung to her like a heavy coat she couldn't take off. Emily sat beside her, finally calmer, sipping hot chocolate with little marshmallows floating on top. "Mommy, we should say sorry," Emily whispered. Her voice was small but firm, the kind of honesty only children have. Charlotte closed her eyes. Her daughter was right. She turned to her head of security. "Find him, the man from the carousel, and his daughter." "Are you sure, ma'am?" "Yes," she said, steadying her breath. "I owe him more than a rushed apology in the middle of a crowd." 20 minutes later, the door opened, and Malik and Ava stepped inside. Both looked unsure, out of place beneath the elegant chandeliers and soft holiday music. Ava clutched Malik's hand, her big dark eyes scanning the room cautiously. Charlotte rose immediately. Emily slid off the couch and ran toward Ava like they were long-lost friends. Malik nodded politely, but there was a guarded distance in his posture. Understandable, given what he'd endured. "Thank you for coming," Charlotte began, her voice gentle, almost trembling. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what happened." Malik shook his head slightly. "You were scared. It happens." "No," she said, swallowing hard. "Fear doesn't excuse the way I treated you. I judged you without thinking, in front of your daughter." Her eyes softened, full of sincere remorse. "I am truly sorry." For a moment, Malik said nothing, his expression unreadable. Then he exhaled, a long, quiet breath that softened the room. "I appreciate your apology," he said. "And honestly, we're okay." Ava glanced up at Charlotte, and when the woman knelt to her level, the little girl didn't pull away. That alone felt like a small miracle. Across the room, Emily tugged Ava's sleeve. "Want to come see the special playground in the back?" And just like that, something shifted, an opening neither adult expected. Charlotte hadn't planned on inviting anyone to the charity gala that night, especially not a man she had just wrongfully accused. But as she watched Emily and Ava laughing together in the lounge's private play area, something softened inside her. Maybe it was relief, maybe gratitude, maybe the quiet realization that these two little girls saw each other without judgment, without fear, something adults often forgot how to do. When the time came to head to the Grand Pavilion, Charlotte hesitated, then looked at Malik. "There's a small event happening tonight. Food, music. Nothing too formal," she lied gently. "The girls seem happy together. Would you both like to join us?" Malik blinked, surprised. "Us? At a gala?" Ava's eyes widened with hopeful excitement before she quickly tried to hide it. Charlotte smiled. "You'd be my guess." Malik glanced down at his jacket. The faded denim stretched thin at the elbows. "I don't think we'd fit in there." "You already do," she said quietly. "You helped my daughter. That's more than most people in that room have ever done." That settled it. The Grand Pavilion shimmered like a snow globe come to life. Towering wreaths, crystal ornaments, and soft golden lights draped from the ceiling. The moment Malik stepped inside, he felt every stare. The polished guests in designer clothes paused, noticing his worn boots, his calloused hands, his humble posture. He wasn't embarrassed, just painfully aware of the distance between their worlds. But Charlotte stayed close without making a show of it, walking beside him, introducing him politely, making space for him in conversations. Malik realized she wasn't doing it out of pity, she was doing it out of respect. Ava and Emily ran ahead, twirling under the lights, their laughter rising like pure holiday music. Seeing them together eased something tight in Malik's chest. Maybe tonight didn't have to be uncomfortable. Maybe it could be, good. He just didn't know yet how quickly the night would test him, and how deeply it would change Charlotte's view of him forever. The gala soon filled with people, wealthy donors, board members, socialites dressed in shimmering gowns and tailored suits. The room buzzed with polite laughter, champagne toasts, and conversations that sounded polished but hollow. Malik kept close to Ava, trying to blend in while navigating a world he'd never been invited into before. Across the room, Charlotte watched him, how he stood quietly at the edge, observing, protecting, never pushing himself forward. There was a steadiness about him, something grounded and quietly strong, that drew her attention more than she expected. Meanwhile, Ava and Emily weaved through the crowd, giggling and chasing each other between decorated tables. Their joy was a warm contrast to the formal atmosphere. Then it happened fast. A sudden surge of people moved toward the stage as the auction began. A tall man backing up without looking nearly toppled over Emily. She stumbled, her tiny hands reaching for anything to grab onto. Before Charlotte could even inhale, Malik was already moving. He cut through the crowd with lightning reflexes, his instincts sharp and unmistakably protective. In one smooth motion, he scooped Emily into his arms just as she lost her balance. She gasped, then clung to his chest, her small body trembling from the scare. "It's okay," Malik murmured, his voice low and steady, the kind that wrapped around a child like a warm blanket. "I've got you. You're safe." Charlotte watched from a few steps away, her heart dropping, then swelling all at once. The way Emily's shaking stopped the moment she felt Malik's arms. The way Ava hovered nearby, concerned but trusting. The way Malik shielded Emily with genuine care, not performative heroics. Charlotte felt something shift, subtle but undeniable. This man, the one she had accused hours earlier, had just protected her daughter with the kind of instinct only a devoted parent possessed. And for the first time that night, she realized Malik wasn't just a stranger who helped her daughter. He was a father, one of the rare, extraordinary kind. After the near accident, Charlotte guided Malik toward the garden behind the pavilion, a quieter place where the noise of the gala softened into a distant hum. String lights hung from the bare branches, casting a soft golden glow across the snowy ground. The air felt still, peaceful, almost sacred. The girls ran ahead, laughing again as if nothing had happened. Kids bounced back fast. Adults, not so much. Charlotte stopped near the stone fountain and turned to Malik. For the first time all night, she looked less like a polished CEO and more like a person. Vulnerable, grateful, searching for the right words. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for saving her. Again." Malik shrugged lightly, though his eyes were gentle. "Just doing what any parent would. Kids don't always see danger coming. That's on us." Charlotte nodded, her voice catching. "You're a good father, Malik." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked toward Ava, who was spinning in circles with Emily, their laughter echoing through the cold air. "I try," he said finally. "Some days feel easier. Some days—" He didn't finish the sentence. Charlotte understood more than he realized. She took a slow breath. "Emily's father died when she was a baby. I've been trying to be everything. Mom, dad, CEO, caretaker. And somewhere along the way, I forgot how to just be present." Malik's expression softened. "Grief does that. Makes you feel like you're always running to catch up." Charlotte glanced down, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure I've been a good mom. Not the kind Emily deserves." Malik stepped closer, not invading, just offering quiet reassurance. "You love her. That matters more than anything. Kids feel that, even when we're messy, tired, overwhelmed." Charlotte blinked away tears she didn't expect. His words weren't polished or strategic. They were real, and they landed deep. For the first time in a long time, someone saw past her title, past her walls, past her mistakes, and spoke to the part of her that still wanted to be enough. By the time they returned indoors, the girls were buzzing with excitement, faces flushed from the cold, hands swinging together like they'd been best friends for years. Malik watched them with a soft smile, unaware that the night was about to stumble into its first real conflict. Charlotte hesitated before speaking. Her voice was warm, careful. "Malik, there's something I wanted to ask you." He turned, curious. "What's that?" She exhaled, steadying herself. "Emily loves her art school. It's small, nurturing, really good for her. And I was thinking, Ava might enjoy it too. I'd be happy to cover the tuition." Malik froze. The warmth from moments earlier faded, replaced by a tightness in his jaw. "You want to pay for my daughter's school?" Charlotte blinked, surprised by the shift. "I just meant, It sounds like charity, he said, his voice low, controlled. It's gratitude, Charlotte insisted, not charity. Ava's amazing. She deserves the same opportunities Emily has. Malik looked away, the hurt unmistakable. You think because I can't afford a fancy school, I'm failing her? No, Charlotte said quickly. That's not what I meant at all. But intent doesn't erase impact. Across the room, the holiday lights reflected in Malik's eyes. Conflicted, wounded, proud. Charlotte felt her stomach drop. She had climbed too far into dangerous territory without realizing it. Malik, she tried again, softer this time. I wasn't judging you. I just saw how happy the girls were. I thought maybe it could be good for both of them. Ava tugged Malik's sleeve then, her eyes hopeful. Daddy, and Emily says they have horses there. That small, innocent sentence worked into the cracks of Malik's armor. He glanced back at Charlotte, her expression open, earnest, vulnerable in a way he hadn't expected from someone so powerful. I'll think about it, he said finally. Not yes, not no, but a fragile truce hovering between pride and possibility. Christmas Day arrived with a soft blanket of snow covering the city, quieting everything beneath a calm, winter glow. Malik spent the morning making pancakes shaped like stars, Ava's favorite, while she hummed carols and taped construction paper snowflakes to their small apartment window. It was simple, imperfect, and deeply theirs. Just as they finished cleaning up, Malik's phone buzzed. A message from Charlotte. Dinner at our home tonight? Nothing fancy, just us and the girls. I'd really love for you to come. Malik stared at the words longer than he meant to. Part of him hesitated. The memory of their tense conversation still lingered. But when Ava peeked over his shoulder and saw Emily's name, her entire face lit up with hopeful joy. Daddy, Ma, can we go, please? That was all it took. Charlotte's home looked like something out of a holiday movie. Warm lights glowing in every window, a wreath fresh with pine and berries, and a huge tree visible through the front glass. But inside, the atmosphere was surprisingly cozy, lived in, beautifully human. No caterers, no staff, just Charlotte and Emily wearing matching aprons dusted with flour. We tried baking cookies, Charlotte said with an embarrassed laugh. Keyword, tried. Malik chuckled as Ava rushed in to hug Emily. The girls disappeared upstairs within seconds, leaving the adults alone with their awkwardness, and something else hanging quietly between them. Dinner wasn't perfect. The mashed potatoes were lumpy, the rolls slightly burnt, and the gravy too thin. But the laughter that filled the room, honest, warm, family-like, made everything taste right. After they finished eating, Charlotte watched her daughter lean against Malik's shoulder while he helped the girls assemble a toy castle. There was a softness in Emily she rarely saw, a lightness in Malik too, like he'd finally found a moment to breathe. Charlotte sat beside him, voice low. I wanted tonight to feel real. No expectations, no pressure, just people who care about each other. Malik looked at her, really looked at her, and something gentle flickered in his eyes. For the first time, it felt like their two separate worlds were starting to overlap. After dinner, the house grew quiet in that warm, comforting way homes do on winter nights. The girls had fallen asleep by the fireplace, Emily's head resting on Ava's shoulder, both wrapped under a soft plaid blanket. The tree lights blinked gently beside them, casting golden, sleepy patterns across the room. Malik and Charlotte sat nearby on the couch, watching the girls breathe in perfect sync. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward anymore, just peaceful, honest, tender. Charlotte tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. You know, when Emily was born, I thought I had to be perfect. The perfect businesswoman, the perfect mother, the perfect protector. Tonight I realized I don't need perfect. I just need present. Malik nodded, his voice low and warm. Kids don't want perfection. They want us, the real us, even when we're tired, confused, overwhelmed. He looked at her then, really looked, and there was something unmistakably gentle in his eyes. And for what it's worth, you're a good mom, Charlotte. A really good one. Her breath shook slightly, gratitude softening every line of her face. And you, she whispered, are the kind of father most kids only dream of. For a moment, the falling snow outside felt like it was echoing something deeper. Quiet hope, fresh beginnings, the kind of stillness that lets two people finally see each other clearly. The fire crackled, the lights dimmed, and something unspoken yet undeniably real settled between them. Charlotte leaned in just a little, not a kiss, not a promise, but an invitation. So, what happens after tonight, Malik? He chuckled softly. I don't know, but I do know this. Whatever comes next, we take it slow. For the girls. For ourselves. Charlotte smiled, warm and unmistakably hopeful. Slow sounds perfect. Malik reached out, brushing his hand gently against hers. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like this was always where they were meant to end up. Across the room, Ava stirred in her sleep, squeezing Emily's hand tighter. Emily responded instinctively, leaning closer. Even in dreams, they held on to each other. A new family wasn't formed in one night, but sometimes the beginning of one could be. And this soft, glowing, imperfect Christmas night felt like the start of something beautiful. Before we end, a question for you. If you were in Charlotte's place, would you have trusted Malik from the beginning? Or would fear have made you act the same way she did? Your thoughts might surprise you. If this story touched you, don't forget, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more emotional, heartwarming stories like this. Your support helps us bring more real, meaningful moments to life. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. Merry Christmas, and may you always find people who feel like home.